Please welcome your host for this session, Jack from Achievement Hunters.
Hello, E3. How are you guys doing today? E3 2017. I'm very, very excited to be here today. Welcome to Hope County and welcome to Far Cry 5. We've got an awesome panel today. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got some really cool people. Please make some noise for Dan Hay, the creative director, Drew Holmes, the lead writer, and J.S. DeCon, the narrative director of Far Cry 5. Oh my gosh, how you guys doing today? You excited to be at E3?
Really good.
Yeah? You excited to talk about Far Cry 5 finally?
Jesus, this is a big room.
Y'all don't bite, do you? Right? No? No one answered that, which is very frightening to me. So I'm very nervous about you guys. Yeah, it's going to be very scary. So anyway, Far Cry 5. This is so exciting. So I'm pumped to talk about it. And how long have you guys been working on this game now?
I think we've been working on it for about 2.5, 3 years, and it's amazing because we've had it in our heads for a long time, and we've been wanting to talk about it, and we can't. So now, what's great is being here at E3 and finally being able to share it. It's been fantastic for us.
That's great. So real quick, before we kind of get into the real specific Far Cry stuff, I know as a fan, I'm always curious to kind of what like a creative director does for a game. So what exactly do you do on Far Cry 5?
I think it's, in the simplest terms, basically you're coming up with the kernel of an idea, and you're making sure that you kind of follow through on that idea. So the very first thing that I thought about when building this game was just the sign of Hope County. Just seeing that sign and kind of the word Sinner written across it, and the story that's told with that sign. And then, after that, what the creative director does is start to flesh that out and take that idea and start to think about the antagonist and the struggle and the stories in the world, and then you hand it off to a great team, and they make something great with it.
Yeah, it sounds like they hand it off to Drew then, and then Drew, you have to come up with what the actual story is. So
Try not to screw it up.
And so what's that like? So when he comes to you with a sign that says Sinner, and you're like, I got to make a game around this, what happens there?
There's a lot of collaboration in the entire process. I sat down with Dan probably almost 2 years ago now. He pitched me what he wanted to do for the game. It was about a half-hour conversation, and I left going, you know what? I've got to move to Montreal. This is what I'm gonna. If I say no to this opportunity, I'm gonna regret it for the rest of my life. And so from that point on, we just started kicking around ideas. For the first probably 4 or 5 months, I was up at the studio. It was really talking about Joseph Seed as the leader of this cult. We knew that we wanted to bring a new level of villain to the franchise. Far Cry is always known for really great villains, Voss, Pagan Min. We knew that we needed to step up our game this time around, not just do one villain, do four, right? Introduce the concept of the family. And from then, we just started to bring in more writers, right? Building a writer's room, which is really the first time I think we'd done something like this for Far Cry. Bringing in a whole bunch of different writers, all sorts of backgrounds, to be able to give us a sense that there's a large, diverse group of people that are in Montana that they had gone and visited. So we needed to make sure that we had a lot of different people with lots of different points of view to help sort of shape this. And that's when we start to bring in guys like JS, who it's one thing to sort of write a script, it's another to sort of get it into the game, and that's where JS really comes in.
Yeah, so JS, so you basically kind of link these two guys together and make the story and the game work together. What is that job like?
Yes, so I take the vision from Dan and the words from Drew, and then it's about taking that and bringing it into the game, into the experience. So it's about working with the people that are building the world, the people that are making the missions, and the systems. And it's taking all this and trying to infuse it to make it an experience. So we have a lot of discussion, the three of us, and when we are happy with something, I think it's the moment where we can start to talk about it with the team and have something that's going to be super cool.
Oh, see, when I got happy with something, that would make me nervous because I'd be like, oh God, I know we're missing something. What's going on here? So
I think apparently we do have a lot of discussions, but not about what to wear.
Yeah. So you try to all
Great
match.
minds think alike, Dan. Come on.
Now, so we know Hope County is filled with tons of amazing characters, but what's it like writing that story? What's it like in that setting in Hope County? What's that like?
It's tough. I think for us, we always are chasing character, we want to make sure that as you move through the world, as you're exploring the people that live there, we need them to feel believable. We need to feel like they're a part of this community. They lived there for a long time. So for me, from the writing standpoint, it's all about motivation. It's about empathy. I want to be able to make sure that stuff doesn't feel you don't want to see the writer behind the scenes at all. You want to just feel like, oh, this is someone that I just sort of bumped into in the middle of this bar, like Mary May or anyone like that. It's rewarding when you sort of sit down and watch people play the game. They're like, oh, I really had a fun time, hanging out with these characters. It's good.
That's cool, man. And so, like you mentioned before, so typically you kind of like in Far Cry games, you have like one big villain. This time you have Eden's Gate, which is a whole family of villains. So what is Eden's Gate, and how do they interact with the community or the characters of Hope County?
I think that the original concept was, like Drew was talking about, is to make it so that it's not just one character that you're going against. So we actually had this concept of the family. And I always thought it was interesting to think about them actually sitting around a table and having dinner and what they'd say to each other and just sort of get the sense of the tension of that. And so I think we built this family. We wanted to, we did a pretty good job with Voss, and we had Peg and Min and Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4, and we were like, okay, we have to raise the bar. How are we going to do that? So the concept of the cult, the concept of a family, the concept of this guy who absolutely believes that the end of the world is coming. And what he believes is that he's got to go out and save as many people as he can, whether they want to be saved or not. That was pretty powerful for us. So I think we built that. We built this magnetic character, and then we got an actor who came in. You get a great writer, you get a great actor, and it's not a science. It's absolutely alchemy. You do what you can to try and put all the pieces together and make it interesting, and then you hope that you get something great. And then we saw Greg's first performance, and it can I swear?
I think so.
Okay,
I'm not
it
going to say
scared
no.
the shit out of me. I mean, one of the things that we try and do is make sure that if we're talking about something like a cult, and we're talking about it has to be believable that that we meet somebody and they could actually talk to us and pull us into that world. And Greg gave a performance where, by the end of it, I was like, I think I might follow this guy. So it worked. It was really good.
Nice, and it's got to be intimidating for him to come into to a franchise where these villains have been so well known. I mean, Voss is. I mean, is he going to end up on Better Call Saul now? Is that what's going to happen with the father?
That's a damn good question. I don't know.
Greg Brick is on many shows already on local television in Canada, but he was in this movie. Which one?
Oh, he was in History of Violence, right?
Yeah, History of Violence.
Yeah, at the
Yeah.
very beginning.
It seems like he would fit in perfect. I got to say, I love this image here, this art. This is such a beautiful image. It's. This is basically what lunch looks like at Rooster Teeth. So, you got Bernie in the middle there, and everyone else is feared. Yeah. Anyway. So let's talk a little bit about Father Joseph Seed. So he's a serious character. So what does he believe in? What is, obviously he thinks the world's going to end, but where did that come from? Like where did that motivation come from for the character?
Well, for me, I think back to the original pitch of the game, which was that sometimes when you're hearing about a pitch of a game and you hear about the elevator pitch, it's not really an elevator pitch, it's a lot of stuff. And what I remember, I was a child of the 80s, and I was 10 years old in 1982, and what I remember from that time is sort of the crushing weight of looking up at what was going on with America and the Soviet Union, and the feeling of the Cold War, and the feeling like the world could kind of end at any time, and being 10 years old and not really knowing how to deal with that. And just that pressure for years, and you're watching Terminator, and you're watching War Games, and you're watching, there was a TV show with Jane Fonda, I can't remember what it was called, it was like The Day After Tomorrow or something like that, and it scared the shit out of me as a kid.
Dude, Red Dawn, man.
Yeah, Red Dawn, exactly. I mean, that's the stuff that we were watching at the time, and I remember thinking, we're this close. And then, when the Berlin Wall fell, I didn't have that feeling anymore. I think the global consciousness everybody kind of breathed this collective sigh of relief that, okay, we're safe. And I remember that feeling kind of got pushed to the background for a while. And then I'd say about 12, 15 years ago, it started to come back for me. And I watched things like the subprime mortgage collapse, and the feeling like people were looking at the government and going, who's in charge of this? Who's protecting our stuff? And then the feeling of like Brexit and the language globally changing from us and the global village to kind of them. And so I thought it would be really interesting to build a character that had that feeling, and then decided to actually do something about it, that they heard this voice told them that they were obligated, they had a mandate to go out and save people. And that key thing of, souls don't harvest themselves. And then putting that mandate in a game, putting it in Far Cry, and then having you step into that world, and then, like Drew was saying, building the writer's room and having them contribute to it, that felt really powerful.
Man, so, and that being said, too, you guys have all worked on other Far Cry games before, right?
No, I have.
Oh,
This
you
is my
haven't?
first one, yeah.
So you're the rookie. Did you get hazed into it? Like,
Big time.
So JS and Dan. So how did you take other experiences from previous Far Cry games and bring them into this?
It depends, but for this one, for instance, we worked a lot on the animals on Primal, so we reused it in this one. We brought Boomer.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about Boomer.
And there will be some others. Yeah, Boomer especially. He's a fan favorite. It's crazy how people are reacting to him. We were not expecting that level of love and affection for this dog. So yeah, for instance, we bought that from Primal. Since Far Cry 3 also, we are trying to develop the gun for hire system. But it was something on the side, and this time we really tried to push it and make it a core feature. So now you really have these partners like Grace, the sniper, Nick Rai, the plane fighter. These people are going to be your friend, your virtual friend. They know about Montana, they've been oppressed, and they want to resist. And they will cheer when you do cool stuff. They will also mock you when you do stupid stuff. So it's really about a virtual friend that actually also are tools to play the game.
Yeah, now let's talk about Montana for a bit here. We have a question from Facebook Live that someone asked. I don't know if we can cue that up here and check out this question we got from online.
Hi, I'm here with Kelly from San Diego, California. Kelly, what is your question for the Far Cry 5 team?
Hi there, 5 team. I have a question about where you guys visited in the Midwest or rural Montana that drew the inspiration for Far Cry 5.
There you go. So where did your inspiration? I heard you guys actually went to Montana, right?
Yeah, we did. I think that, way back when we started talking about the game and we started kicking around the idea of Montana, I mean, people were like, Montana? What the hell? Like, what? And then we started talking about it, and then sort of the history of self-reliance and the idea of maybe some folks that live there that don't want to be messed with and be left alone and kind of left out of the prying eyes of everybody. And it became interesting because, Far Cry is about finding a frontier and wilderness and definitely exotic. But the more we talked about Montana, it seemed to make sense. So we had to find out. So we got on a plane and we went there, and within 24 hours we were sure. And I think the reason for me is really simple, is that whenever I think about a Far Cry and I hear a Far Cry pitch, what I do is I try and imagine that I'm sitting in a bar and I'm having a scotch, and the people who are going to have that, I'm definitely having a scotch. The people who are there and will walk in, the characters from the game will walk in, and they'll tell this sort of urban legend of what happened in this Far Cry pitch. And if I listen to it and it has that frontier, if it has that uniqueness to it, almost that Twilight Zone feel to it, if it feels real but it also feels off, I absolutely believe we can make a Far Cry from that. And what happened is that as we started to talk about Montana, and I think of that bar for every single Far Cry, what's happened now in my head is that bar is now in Montana. So it's changed how I think about the brand.
Now, so what's that bar look like for Primal?
Yeah, it was a little weird. I had to admit, that one was weird. Like a couple cavemen coming in and just having a scotch, but it was cool.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, Montana, it seems like kind of a perfect, like how many, audience poll, how many of you have visited Montana before? All right, we got a few. Now, do you believe something like this could take place in Montana? Yeah. There we go. Very resounding yes. So I think you nailed it right there.
Yeah, what's really cool is that we've had a lot of people that have been from Montana, have grown up there, have come to play the game, and they're like, immediately they look around, they're like, yeah, this feels like Montana. Just walking through it, meeting some of the people, I think that we do a ton of research into the setting, right? Like Dan said, meeting people, getting a sense of what their personalities are, just because you want to. I mean, Hope County is obviously fictional, but if it doesn't at least feel believable or relatable, then I think you're immediately sort of pulled out of the fantasy. So that's key, is just making sure that we do the research as much as possible to make sure that it feels authentic.
You got to do your homework, right? I mean, we went there, we drank the water, we went hunting, we went fishing, and that was a really cool thing too, because when you're making a game like this, it's important that you build a believable world. And there was a moment where we're kind of like fishing with this guy, and he's pretty stoic and whatnot, and he wasn't saying much, and we're just fishing, and he just leans over and he goes, these trout don't live in ugly places. We're like, man, okay, that's got to be a T-shirt,
beautiful.
Right? That's amazing. And it's like those little anecdotes, those little moments where you realize that, not every problem solved with a gun, we can go out into the world and we can build this world where sometimes you want to get into a badass car, a muscle car, and the right piece of music comes on and you just want to drive. And you can have that happen in Far Cry 5.
Well, in Montana, you can drive about 120 down the highway, too,
yes.
So that works out pretty well. So how long until fishing ended up in the game? Like, was that in the original game design doc? Or
right from the beginning, but we just didn't understand how much people were going to love it. So people are waiting in line at E3, and we're thinking, they're waiting, a couple hours to play the game, and the line is huge, and they get in there for 10, 15 minutes, and they spend the entire time. We're building this story, we're building this immersive world, and they fish. You're like, okay, you know what? Play the game you want to play.
Yeah, that sounds like, I imagine, so I know Achievement Hunter at some point we're going to do a Let's Play in the game, and it's going to be Jeff and I fishing, and then it's going to be Michael and Ryan dogfighting, and there's smash cut to death and destruction.
Exactly.
Jeff and I just fishing. So let's talk about some of the characters in the game now. So I'm excited for this, because I think for the first time ever in a Far Cry game, you have Fangs for hire, which is great. You have Boomer in the game, which I'm super excited. Look at Boomer! Oh, look at that guy. That's so awesome. So you were talking about Primal before. It sounds like Boomer is kind of a direct response to Primal, right?
Yeah, it's an extension, and there will be also other surprises. But yeah, he's a cool mutt, and I think everybody fell in love with the fact that he's able to disarm bad guys and bring back the weapon.
Yeah, such a good boy. And I've heard you can pet Boomer too. Is that true?
Yes.
That's incredibly important in a video game now. Thank you very much from the audience. And I want to point out something too. Oh, sorry.
No, it's just that there was this one time because we were wondering if Boomer was going to work or wondering how it was going to work. And there's a guy at the office who's pretty stoic. He doesn't say much. And I don't know that he really believed in Boomer. And so he was playing the game. And we're kind of watching his face and trying to get a sense of whether or not he likes it. And he's being super quiet, and he's on a 50 cal, and he's kind of blowing all these cultists, whatnot. And then all of a sudden, he sees these cultists come around the side, and then Boomer comes over and basically takes out the cultists and takes them out, and he goes, "Good dog, good dog." And yes, we nailed it. It's perfect.
Now, that's fantastic. Now, one thing I love about Ubisoft is always great to their community. They're all really, really good with their fans. If you guys seen, like, they do cosplay guides for, like, For Honor and for The Division and everything else. They made a cosplay guide for Boomer. I don't know if we have it here. This is official. This came out of Ubisoft. And I love that, the floppy fun detector. But my favorite is the hustle sticks. Those are very important. So if you have a dog that you want to cosplay, there you go. You got the official cosplay guide for Boomer, which is
shout out to two of our writers, James and Mari, who came up with the hustle sticks and the friendship beacon.
That's fantastic. All right, let's get into some of the human characters of the game. What can you tell me about Grace? Now, she seems pretty cool.
Yeah, she's an interesting character because she's pretty quiet, right? And we wanted to be able to make it so that the characters were different. When you're building these characters to make the world feel real, you want to be able to make it so that it's not all the same tone, it's not all the same voice. And she's very different from the standpoint of, if you meet Nick, he's pretty bombastic. He's a little bit slapstick sometimes. Grace isn't like that. She's calm, she's rational, she's methodical, and it's born from a little bit of pain, right? In her background, she's had a situation where there's been loss. And you're going to hear that creep into her voice. You're going to hear that in the writing. And what's really interesting, and Drew touched on it a bit, is that we've really kind of handled the writing differently on this game, where we want to build that writer's room, and we want people who are responsible for building those characters and taking those characters all the way through. They own an action bubble, they own a character, and that character is very much alive for them. That character in the world has a job, they have something that they're doing, and they're not just waiting around to give you a mission or a quest. They're going to go out and they're going to affect the world on their own, and we want Grace to be like that.
That's cool. I like that you have writers specifically for characters, because that way you don't have a voice that suddenly turns, like they're not like super soft and quiet at the beginning of the game, then another writer takes over and they're suddenly a bombastic asshole. Like that's good to hear.
Consistency, I think, is key, and it's about finding who on the team can sort of hit that right tone for Grace, who is much more somber, much more serious, has a very specific, really bad things have happened to her in the past, and as opposed to someone like Nick or other crazy characters we haven't quite unveiled yet. I think Far Cry, the brand is sort of, it walks the line between like very, very serious and then having a little bit more fun on the periphery. So it's important for us to make sure that we're bringing writers in who can, we're putting people in a position to succeed, right? That our guys who are really good at comedy writing are sort of handling those characters, and the sort of more stoic people are writing people like Grace.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Far Cry to me has always been about fun, first and foremost. The game is always, you can do whatever the hell you want, go, unleash animals on people and have a blast. So it's very important to the game. I'm glad you guys are focusing on that too. So, okay, so now I'm curious about Pastor Jerome Jeffries, which a game you have very cult-like figures, and you've got this guy. So how does sort of he fit in the world? I think do we have a video to show for this too, or? Oh.
Woe to the man who leads my flock astray, says the Lord. We were given so much. This land, this life, our freedom. What's left of it now? Our people felt abandoned, grew weary. They needed our help. And we didn't listen. But he did. Told them exactly what they wanted to hear. But those falsehoods, lies, his poison, it's driven them from pasture, from the righteous path. Woe to the man who leads my flock astray. For if I am not their shepherd, then I must be the wolf.
So I think he had his Bible open to Austin 3:16 there with the gun inside of it. We're a little bit messed up with it. So tell me a little bit about Jerome.
Yeah, I think that he's someone who, again, a lot of people in the community of Falls End have been affected by the cult, by the project at Eden's Gate. For us, it was important to sort of show someone who was a community leader that's been pushed too far, right? I mean, the idea of we initially sort of came up with this idea of the machine gun preacher, right? A man of God who has maybe been pushed too far and is willing to save his people, maybe at the expense of his own soul. That was the initial idea from it, and from there it just sort of turned into Pastor Jerome.
Good Lord, that's awesome. All right, real quick, we're running a little bit low on time, so let's take a look at Mary May. I'm curious about her.
I grew up here, you know. Had my first kiss out back with some dumb cowboy. Almost got caught by my dad. He loved this place. It wasn't all easy. But he always made sure that here, you could speak your mind. And then they showed up. We're here to help, they said. He believed them. And then they took my mom. My brother. And Dad was never the same. Now what? You wanna take this place too? No. This place is ours.
All right. Now, please tell me I can get a Whistling Beaver shirt from somewhere. Is that going to be in the store?
Yeah, that's cool. You could do that if you want. Sure.
Okay, nice. So obviously she's had a lot of like personal strife. Her family's been affected by the father.
Yes, it's quite heavy what happened to her family, and she's now the only remaining survivor. And she's kind of she's the heart of the community of Falls End. She's going to lead the resistance in this part of the game, and she's going to be a close partner of the player. And she's all about disrupting the cult. Voilà.
Nice. All right. So finally, we got Nick Wray, who I personally am excited for because he's a pilot and I love flying in video games. Let's check out Nick now.
She's a beaut, ain't she? All this time. She ain't never let me down. I just hope she's around when he's old enough to fly. Ooh, my boy. I mean, I hope it's a boy. I just want him to fly her like I do. Not like my dad or my grandpa. They flew in the war, so I didn't have to. But now, I don't know if he'll ever have the chance. Not with these around here. People are scared, man. I may never have gone to war. If them Peggies come after my family, sure as hell will give them one.
My God. That is one hell of a crop duster there. So what can you tell me about Nick?
I think honestly, Nick is just a regular guy, right? I mean, that's one of the things that we met when we were in Montana. I really got the impression that some of the folks that we met had a really good bullshit meter, and that we couldn't, they didn't suffer fools, and that when they were pushed to the edge, you could really get the sense like they could handle themselves. And that's Nick. I mean, he's got the plane. He's a bit of a badass. He's also a bit of a jokester. And he's the guy you want to basically have your back, from 1,000 feet up, causing trouble.
And so he has more than just a gun, though, right, on that plane?
Yeah, bombs, machine guns, all sorts of fun tools for the player to play around with.
Oh, man.
And he's super bombastic, Nick Wray, but he's also he has heart, and that's a character that will bring. You'll see in his story that we brought something that maybe was not present in previous Far Cry. We're trying to also go in spaces where it's not just about crazy cuckoo characters.
Yeah, his character's evolved a lot. I think speaking to the writer's room, the character has evolved a lot. He used to be like this, just on his own, a little bit more menacing. And as we started to work with everyone, we developed this idea that, okay, his wife, Kim, is actually maybe the driving force in the relationship. Maybe he wants to run and hide away from the cult, and she's the one saying, no, this is our home. We got to stick here. We got to fight. And so that balance between that relationship and the way that interplays, I think speaking to what JS is saying, that's not a relationship that I think we've seen before in a Far Cry, and it feels bringing more empathy into these characters and making it feel like, oh, this is real, this is charming, like it's giving you a reason to push back against the cult other than that the game's telling you to do it. These are people that I want to help.
Nice. Now, if these lovely people in the audience want to check out Far Cry this week, where would they do that?
Well, they just come to the Ubi booth and hop in line and check it out.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, guys. Dan, Drew,
Thanks,
JS.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, E3. It's been a blast. Far Cry 5.